Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, LinkedIn community. This is another episode of GR Live. I am always fired up to be here because we have some of the best guests, and Adam is no different. In fact, I had a tropical shirt on because I felt like, for some reason, I felt like I needed to have this tropical shirt on, and then my team's like, you know what? Maybe that's a little too much for Adam. But welcome, Adam. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I would have been doing better if you had on a tropical shirt,
I
honestly.
tried, man. My team, I don't know. Maybe I should start doing what I think. But hey, for those who don't know, Adam Butera, he has 10 years in the staffing industry. I'm not going to tell you all the great things that he has done, but we are here today really to talk about the importance of data in our staffing industry. And Adam's got a lot of different perspectives that he can share around data and how he's using it and where it's really brought him today. But before we really kick into that, Adam, the first question I like to ask everybody, it's the same way I frame it. Unless you grew up with somebody in your family that was in staffing, nobody grows up and says, I want to be in staffing. I want to be a recruiter. But like many, I fell into it and fell in love, and I feel the same for you. So how did you fall into this industry, and why did you fall in love?
It's like so many, right? You wander into working with a staffing agency at some point to ask for help finding a career, and they dupe you. They dupe you right into joining this industry. And before you know it, you're hooked. So it's
Hey,
basically
you're
what
a
happened,
you
right? I
seem
got brought internally,
yeah,
became a recruiter, and just fell in love with it, right? I think
yeah,
just earliest on, this is one of the few industries where you get out what you put in,
yeah.
right? If you're willing to work hard and you do work hard, you're most often rewarded for that behavior, right? And that is few and far between. And at the end of the day, we're helping people find jobs, so there's some nobility to that too, or at least that's what I tell myself.
Awesome. So walk me through your last 10 years. How'd you get
Yeah,
from
yeah. So there you go. Walked into that staffing
walking
agency.
in?
They asked
Yeah.
me to come internally, right? Started out doing some sales for them, and then quickly moved into direct hire recruiting, and then went over to work for Monster actually. And when I first started out with those guys, I was actually traveling around the Northeast at their largest customers, teaching recruiters how to interact with technology better. Right? It was originally interact with Monster better, but as you know, that quickly turns into interact with all their technology, right? How can you just help? And so I've always had that curiosity of the user and the technology within staffing, and understanding that that's the parts that we need to iron out in order to make this all flow much smoother, right?
I think that's why when we first met, we clicked because we had that. I think we were both early on seeing like technology will not replace the recruiters. Technology will have its place in staffing, but how much technology can really help recruiters just accelerate at their careers, make them more
Yes,
efficient, eliminate that shitty experience that so many people have with recruiters, and technology can help with that as well. So
it can.
after
It's all that
Monster,
frustration, right? And then
yeah,
it's that carried over into my other, jobs. I've done that left Monster, worked for, companies like Sense, and then most recently at Lead Health, uh, help them with their digital transformation when they were upgrading and really converting everything over and rebuilding from scratch. So had the
yeah,
unique opportunity of being back on that side of the house, and now I'm at Opus Match, where really they were a partner of ours when I was at Lead, and then when my time with them ran out, quickly went over to Opus to really do what we were trying to do at Lead at a grand scale. And
right.
so it's really trying to apply what we did there, but for everybody, and open up for everybody to take advantage of it. So my philosophy through all of this, as is has always been very much about enhancing partnerships and relationships, right? And making it so we can all kind of rise together, and there's enough out there for all of us. And so that's really how I've operated, with that curiosity in mind, and
Yeah,
truthfully just been really lucky and benefited from some good people looking out for me over the years.
yeah. I mean, just much like me. I mean, I left a great company, but I saw a bigger opportunity to take what I was doing for one company and bringing it to the entire industry.
Yep.
Right. I mean, it's amazing how many people need the experience that we've created, the advice, the guidance. They need it, and a lot of companies haven't even invested in the resources internally to help manage any of this stuff.
Yeah.
as their tech stack has grown, I still talk to companies that don't have somebody who's, 100% focused on the technology integration and the efficiency of those systems.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I could go on for days about this. This is right in Opus's wheelhouse as far as managing
Yeah,
that type of data and system to make it easy, because that has been the problem, to your point of, even if
right.
they had somebody, where do you get started and how do you start? What can you see? What can you even control? Right? We've been
Yeah,
so at bay with trusting the partners that we've put in place, which is great. Um, but in some cases, there's limitations there, even to what they can do.
right.
Right. So this is where it becomes important for you to look out for your own business, for sure. And it doesn't have to be some robust technical, give somebody the daunting task of hiring some robust IT department, right? But you're right. There just needs to be somebody with eyes on it, right? Or at least a
Right.
couple people with eyes on it, paying attention to it, whose sole job is to focus on your technology.
Right. And I always lead. I loved that when they started with technology in the forefront of their minds. Right. It
Yep.
wasn't an afterthought, from my understanding. And I think in
No,
investing in somebody like
no, it
yourself,
wasn't
it's
in.
like, we're building this based on people and technology. And so, can you before we really jump into the data, because I'm interested,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's
yeah.
probably a lot of people that are thinking about how to think about technology. Like, what perspective was different that you saw with Lead as they led with technology, and then how did you go about helping them make a decision what the right tech stack was and the right data points were for them to help, really propel their growth?
It's it was courageous, is the way that I can describe it. Honestly, this goes to Leben, and he was in our earliest conversations talking about the digital transformation and really what my brain was kind of cooking up and what I had in store, and really pitching it, right, and seeing if we were on board and aligned there.
Yeah.
Part of this was a trust that he was willing to invest in some of these technologies up front without a little bit of the ROI, perhaps, right, or that guarantee. Um, and so there were trade-offs that we made, and there were things that we could do to, you know, broker those relationships along, where we could provide feedback and create these mutually beneficial relationships of feedback loops to work with our vendor partners, and
Right.
help us out for as being a young company with trying to take this on, and asking our vendor partner to say, hey, you're one of many, please keep that in mind, and what we're trying to do here is big. So we kind of almost presented it as what it was, right? It was building that partnership with everybody, but really Leban's courage to invest up front, knowing that the dividends would pay out in over time, right? It was playing that long game.
Yeah.
So, and that's really what it takes, because this isn't the kind of thing that you're going to invest in and have an immediate return. The returns that you're going to see, which we're going to get much further into, right, are more granular, and you have to kind of look at those over time as they compound.
It's funny. I always say I'm in it for the I'm not in it for the short term gain. And I think a lot of companies are trying to say, how do I win in the short term? How do I win today? I got this. I got this. I got to take care of this. And you said it, the long-term sustainable growth oriented, it's the long-term gain. You just can't
Yes.
look at what's in front of you. And so can you share what the tech stack was like? What were the pieces that were important, whether you want to talk about the actual companies or the
Yeah.
different components? Like, what was the tech stack that you ended up getting
Yeah. I
integrated?
mean, what I think is important for everybody, right? I mean, obviously ATS, you need an ATS that's willing to partner, right? And you've got a few good ones out there. Um, so obviously you need an ATS that's willing to partner, open APIs or the likes. Um, Definitely something for automation, some way to handle automated engagement, automated outreach, right? You're going to need something to judge performance, right? So some sort of a performance rating tool that's universal, I think, is really important. Some way to translate that data. So you're going to need a BI tool of some sort. Now, that doesn't have to be something super sophisticated. That can be built into the ATS, or something that you build out on your own as a Power BI tool. I think the analytics and that part of it becomes very important, right? And the ATS and the analytics become the most important, and the other pieces are um, they're starting to become necessary, right? The automated engagement is necessary. The ratings tools are necessary. All of these pieces are necessary, and it's not really up to us. I mean, we have all wandered into the space of being marketplaces at this point, right? Like it or
Yeah.
not, if you have a job board and you're offering jobs to candidates and trying to get them placed at those jobs, then you have a marketplace. And Amazon has already dictated what marketplaces look like. We all love them, we all use them, right? And so those are all the things that you need to incorporate. And we're
Right.
fortunate that staffing is somewhat insulated. It's kind of back to how we all got stuck here, right? And we're never leaving. I say stuck, but we stay because we love it, right?
Yeah.
We
Or you
absolutely love
leave
it. It's
fast.
an
You
amazing
leave.
industry. And I would
Yeah.
never want to work in any other one, right?
Right.
It's incredible. And we're insulated in this way that we get technology developed exclusively for us. And so there's some great partners, right, in these spaces that have great technology and great partners that are able to piece it together, you know, a Bullhorn, right, a Target Recruit, and then an Opus Match, right? So I think this is the other piece that's becoming foundational now is some way um, to store all of the data, right? And I think this is what a lot of eyes are being open to, and what my eyes were open to. How I found Opus Match is really in the data lake, right? How could they build out a data lake for us to store everything,
To
right?
store it.
Because you've got these front end systems that are doing a great job in their own right way, right? But how are you kind of storing everything and all things and planning for a future that you don't know about, right? I think
Right.
that's the other really hard thing, and that was the tough thing that we always talked about at Lead Health was how do we scale and remain flexible, knowing that we don't know what the future holds, right? And
Right.
so how do we find a way to collect all the data that we think we don't need, but we might actually need, so we can go back and have that in a way that's not cumbersome, right? But it's there if we need it.
Right.
And so again, I think this gets into the foundational stuff, right? There's a couple core elements that you need, and with those, you can be really dangerous
Yeah.
in the market, right? You don't need a lot to do it, and you don't need a huge team to do it. That's the beauty of the space we're in right now, right?
Right.
With just some key individuals, you can be really disruptive to our space.
Yep. Question. So with like a lot of automation tools I see, they have easy ways to maybe get some quick feedback or an MPS. And you guys went ahead and you brought on great recruiters. And I don't know if I ever asked you, like, what was it? What gap was that filling for you in your mind? Why was that important for a new company out there? Why did you want to implement an experience management platform, review generation?
Yeah, I mean, this is where um, I don't want my answer to be too harsh, and I'm going to say it, but it's obviously knowing that I'm a part of this industry, so I'm a part of the problem, right? But this comes
Right.
down to trust, right?
Yeah.
Who are we to say? Who were we, as in any case, right? To say that our rating system or our surveys are better or our data is better, right? It's about trust, and to me, that's objectivity, right? So an outside vendor doing that has a trusted reputation. I think there's a lot of validation that comes along with that, and
Sure.
so that reputation we get to carry. So that was a value add for me coming into there. And then the second piece of it is obviously the data itself that's coming back.
Right.
And this is really where we can go down a rabbit hole talking about, because you've got the surface level pieces, which are, yes, they had a bad experience, right? Or they had a really great experience, and we all celebrate those. And the bad ones, hopefully, we make some changes and don't make those mistakes again in the future, right?
Right.
But then you've got this whole area of unexplored data too, right? In the non-responses, right? You and I have talked about this
Oh
before.
yeah.
So, and there's this element of, if people aren't saying something, they're actually saying something, and they're saying it very loudly, right? And so those are the things that, like, a great example of a thing that would get overlooked if you're not paying attention, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that those are coachable things, because that person that I'm referring to, right? And it's not any one person individually, but this particular example, right? They're coachable. They're not really bad and they're not really good. So they're not jumping out to anybody that you have to worry about them, right? But it's up to you to be a good, role model or leader, or, you know, um, yeah, a leader, to encourage them to be better at it, right? And especially for the sake of your business, but also as a leader, right?
And you shared that with me. Like that wasn't something that because I always said, the other data point that you need to look at is response rate. because
Yes.
response rate is the hidden indicator of your quality of conversation. Is it really good? Is it really bad? If it was really nothing, I have no reason why I feel I need to provide a response either way. And so I love that when you brought that up in that conversation, I was like, yes, like Adam, you get it. It's like, it's not, it's, people don't think it's black and white, but it is. If you have recruiters getting a 40% response rate and you have somebody with a, 5% or a 0%, like there's a reason in there. And I love, there's a way to unpack it. The other thing, and I think it goes in our first thing, like how do you use data beyond reporting? Every staffing firm has the quantitative data. Every ATS is always giving you the quantitative data of submittals and interviews and hires and ratios and speed to fill and all that stuff. But you talked about how do I bring that quantitative data with the qualitative, right? How do I look at the full picture of a recruiter, not just from a productivity standpoint, but from a review and reputation standpoint?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's really where we're headed.
Yeah.
Right. The whole beauty of automation and I think the future of AI and machine learning, right, is about optimizing our jobs and our roles and responsibilities so we can get away from the things that are cumbersome. Now, what that means is the good recruiters are going to need to be good recruiters. Those are good relationship managers, right? And so this is where all of this is important for your brand, for your brand's reputation, because they're representing you. They're an extension of you, right? We all talk about culture and wanting to have that culture, and this is all an extension of your culture and your brand's culture, and your reputation is the only way that you can really judge that, right? That culture in the space is how is your brand perceived? What are people saying? Back to objective resource, right? Are they going to tell me exactly what they really feel because they're scared that they may not get the job or the pay rate that, they would have gotten if they had written a better review, right? Are we being unethical, basically, right? I'm not saying they have any reason to mistrust, but that's another element that the objective resource, like a great recruiter, comes into play to collect that, to validate that, for them to be honest in their responses. We can collect it.
The old way we used to do it, and some companies still do it this way, and I think it's a little archaic, is they're doing surveys. They're doing self-administered surveys. They're doing a survey through a survey program. They're asking people they successfully placed or had success with. Maybe they're excluding some of the people they know wouldn't give them a good review, but they're not really telling themselves the real story. I mean, they're falsifying their own data that'll help them grow and learn in other areas. And so when you only ask a small segment of people that you think are going to give you a good experience, that's awesome. You're just looking to get good reviews. But if you're looking to really grow your people, grow the organization, you need a system that's always on, that's not leaving it up to a recruiter to decide whether or not it's being asked. It's being asked in every interaction, and it's objective, and it gives everybody out there the voice. And I think until you have that, you do not have a strong understanding of what people really think about your organization, your team. But I could go down this hole forever, Adam. That's not why we're here, but I appreciate you explaining like where you saw that data fitting in to the data model for lead. But talk to us a little bit using data beyond reporting. Like how can organizations better use their data beyond reporting?
Yeah, so that's a great example, right? These are the ways that we have to use it. It's not just about those KPI metrics, right, or how many calls are being made, right? It's you have to look beyond that as far as what's moving the needle, right? And this is a tough one where what interactions are happening, right? And I get into like a little bit of how can you help your vendor partners or understand your vendor partners better, and where they're providing value is where are they really moving the needle? Right? It'd be great if we could all point to, they equaled this many placements, right? Or that would be awesome. But that's not really how any of this works, right? At this point, we're in a situation where everything has to work together in an orchestrated way in order for it to really provide the full value or maximum value to you and your brand. And so, you start to have to look at where has it moved the needle, right? You had bad reviews come in, you made some changes. Now that's moved the needle here, and now you no longer have that friction point, right? Well, who does that get attributed to? That has to point back to the person that collected that data, right? And then the people that came up with the solution and implemented that solution, right? There's quite a few people probably mixed into that little equation there to make
Right.
that happen. And so you've got to attribute those back accurately now. And so I think our minds start to have to shift about how we're judging that data now and look beyond just the reporting, at least when we're looking at where we can augment our process and improve it, make it more efficient, make it more effective, and in return also get that visibility into who's really helping,
Right.
right? And it might be incrementally compounded over time, right?
And we've mentioned Opus Match a number of times. You
Yeah,
mentioned it, but
yeah,
for those who don't know who Opus Match is, I'm just going to take a step back. So I realize like we didn't really
yeah. Please,
talk
let's get
about
into that.
what Opus Match does. Because if someone's going, yes, I want this,
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
want this
So
holistic
this is
viewpoint
exactly.
of the data that's the quantitative, qualitative. I want the data on what systems are working, why are they working, where aren't they, where are they adding value, where are they adding intrinsic value that I'm just not looking at today. Um, that's what Opus Match does,
This is
but
what
you
Opus
say
Match
it
does.
better
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
words.
This is what Opus Match does. So I keep kind of going back to this piece about trying to enhance things, right? Is because our goal is right to really enhance the things you have in place today, but really be that foundational piece for the data visibility, right? So,
Yeah,
not in the sense of a Power BI tool, but more in the daily functions of the job, right? So, having visibility into how the candidates are interacting with your brand online through an app, right? Having visibility into how your team is interacting with those candidates now, right? Seeing that together. And then we have obviously sophisticated matching, hence the name Opus Match, to match candidates to jobs, which is an incredibly sophisticated process we go down itself. But I think at the core of us really is about data, right? And trying to harness that data to your point so that they can use it effectively. So
yeah,
how can we take the Power BI tools and then say, here's the data that you're reporting on. Here's the impact that it's actually having here. Here's where we can make a change. So instead of saying, I'll give you a good example. If you're, placing nurses on assignment, maybe you wanted to know when active nurses are coming off of assignment, when's the best time to reach out to them about an extension. Things like that, right? So you start to look at the data of when nurses are interacting with your platforms, right, during those
sure.
peak times, and you start to make enhancements to the automation perhaps, or advise your recruitment team to reach out at those times. And then you start to look at the data about what's effective, right? And this is where
Right.
Opus Match starts to come into play because we can show that feedback loop on both sides. How are
Hey,
the
yeah,
candidates interacting and how are the recruiters
yeah.
interacting and what's working, what's not working, right? Those key pieces of information and then help you make informed decisions.
So we do like a redeployment review, right? Ask about the facility, ask about your job. Like
That's right.
Opus Match could say, hey, look, when you're asking 5 weeks after assignment, you're getting kind of a 13% engagement. But when you're asking at 6 weeks, we're seeing a 32% engagement.
That's right.
So use that data to know when the appropriate time to ask is. We know we need to ask, but not having a system in place that helps move that needle or at least allows you to analyze and A/B test it. It sounds like that's an area where you guys can kind of use that data, and it's not creating the data; it's just analyzing what you already have and putting it into a simple term. It's
Yeah, and then
funny,
helping
like
you with that, right? So say maybe create an automation that goes out then, and
yeah,
then you don't want an extension. Well, here's some job matches for what are also a fit. Hence, Opus Match sales
it's
injection.
really up to you. You may be looking right now. Let me
Yeah,
help you.
yeah. I mean, these are kinds of things you can do, right, in various again delivery mechanisms to get to the same outcome of providing better service.
So we got a few more things I want to ask you, but
Sure.
before where as an industry of where we are today versus the potential you see on a scale of like 0, we are in the absolute infancy of this, to 10 that we are just crushing it. Where are we with really understanding the intricate data of our interactions in this industry?
I would say we're in its infancy right now, right? I mean, this is a bigger part of yeah. We're early on. This industry has always struggled with dirty data,
Yeah.
right? Which has made it really difficult for a lot of larger companies to scale and expand, right? Or to even utilize technology that may be available to them. And I've seen this at some of the larger companies because their data is just not clean enough to take advantage. And that prohibits growth in the space. If nobody's
Oh,
investing, then technology is not growing there, right? So we're finally at the stage where there's a ton of investment into what we're doing. And that's a lot of why I'm saying we're at the infancy, is because we've got some really great foundational ideas. And when we look outside of our space, we've got major players, obviously. But when we're
major.
looking internally, right, we're really far behind if we compare ourselves to Amazon, right?
Right, right. You know, it's funny. Everyone said I was on a webinar talking about candidate sourcing. And like, talent is hard to find. I'm like, talent has never been easier to find. You
Yeah.
can find talent everywhere. It's right next to you. It's your neighbors. It's in the grocery store. It's on LinkedIn. It's everywhere. The problem is getting them to call you back.
Yes.
And the amazing thing is, because nobody has the sophistication to go ahead and track your callback rates based on the messages and your delivery and who the person is and how you do it, you don't know what your callback rate is. So what was the answer? Make 100 dials a day, it'll work out. Just hammer the phone, right?
Yeah.
But like, that's where I think we are in our infancy, because we're looking at the simple stuff like submittals and interviews and hires. Yes, it's tracked, but like, these aren't, we're tracking the outcomes. We're not
Yes,
tracking the
exactly.
activities, right?
Exactly.
Those are the outcomes. That's easy.
Yes, that's
We're not
exactly right.
tracking
We are.
all the little intricacies in between that are the influencers to reach that outcome. And we're not focused on enough of what the data says in between those outcomes, from my pre-screen to submittal. Why didn't I get to submittal? Why does somebody have twice the submittals? And why does somebody else have twice the interviews or twice the callbacks? Well, this is the data we need to start paying attention to. If we're really going to change the action and behaviors of the people driving this business, we have to start understanding those intricacies, or we're just going to blanket statement, make more calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Get more submittals.
Exactly.
All right, enough of that. I could go on for that. All right, another thing, because this is interesting. I always had my way. I implemented a lot of technology. Like, I was a very early customer of Sense. I love what they were doing. Love what Earfish was doing. How and where do you properly attribute ROI to your vendors? Because, and I say this because I raise my hand and I say, we are one of those vendors that has a ton of ROI from, I can directly say I got a review or I got a referral, I made a placement. Like, that's how we measure ROI. I found them on a job board and I placed them, so I have an ROI. But when you have all of these other complicated data points and things that people just haven't measured, like the sphere of influence, what's the impact of a positive online reputation, all of these different things, I see a big gap of helping firms realize there's a lot more ROI being driven by a lot of platforms because they're so focused on, did I make a placement?
Yeah.
And is that
exactly.
right? I mean, is that what we should be? Should we be focused on, hey, if it doesn't help me make a placement, don't use it?
No. And this is where we go back to the incremental compound growth that I was talking about earlier, and moving the needle. Right. This is where you use an automation, something as simple as, here's a great example. You've got candidates are hard to find. That one always gets me, considering the millions of candidates that some staffing companies have in their system, right? And they're still collecting more.
Well, all their phone numbers are wrong, Adam, so they can't.
Yeah, I know. But, so here we go. That's a great example. All their phone numbers are wrong, right? That's the problem, and that may be the case. So, if some piece of technology that you've invested in, like a Sense or a Herefish, for example, runs an automation to move those candidates that are passive to engage with them in some way with the intention of moving them back to being active, right? If they engage with them and that engagement results in the recruiter calling them and that person now moving through your process, that should be scored as a win.
Yeah.
For Sense or Herefish in that example, right? For
Yeah,
that automation that caused that should be scored as a win for them. Whether that person results in a placement or not, is not really something you can judge, not in this short a time span anyway, because we know this could take 6 months, it could take a year, right?
Short-term gain, I could say I didn't get a placement, but you don't realize that 2 years later you have good data and you make the phone call and you place that person. Are they giving credit back to the automation that helped them get the right information?
That's right. Or better yet, what was the compound of the most successful activity in all those automations that contributed to? So even if that person didn't get a placement through you, you now know that the most effective way to get passive candidates reactivated in your system is XYZ. What's the value of that? How do you put a number on that, right? So those are the kinds of things that we have to look at, and it's not easy. It's difficult and it's complex when you start to do that. But I think those are the ways that we have to start to judge the partnerships and the ROI of these vendors, right? Or the partnerships themselves.
Right. And gosh, you were right. You're like, God, I wonder if we're gonna get through all 4 of these things, because we could talk forever. But all right, so how have you seen data as a way to help standardize? I hate saying good recruiter behavior, but I get what you mean. Doing the right.
I should change that to effective recruiter behavior. That's probably a better way to do it. It's effective.
Right?
It's not good. Like, and this is the other thing is not everyone's equal, right? The outcomes are the equal, right? If your goal is to get them to place candidates, then how they get to placing candidates or how they manage their relationships are not always going to be equal. We have to understand that too, right? So if we've got, hi Wendy, if we've got some recruiters reaching out to them this way, or have this sort of a cadence that's effective for them, maybe the audience that are gravitating towards them is working. Right? Maybe there's a different recruiter that has a different style that they would gravitate towards others, right? And we need to be open to these types of things and this type of flexibility to optimize all of that in that way. And that's what I mean by effective recruiter behavior, is about, how do we look at these simple things? We mentioned it earlier about the extensions, right? Reaching out to nurses that are on assignment. So we've got, we know that they like to be reached out in 6 weeks, reach out to them here. Okay, this recruiter seems to be really effective with voice phone calls, and this recruiter seems to be really effective with SMS. So let's encourage that behavior and keep that moving forward, right? That's not universal, but it's working for them, and they're both reaching equal outcomes, right? So just pay attention to those things and start to help them be better at what they do, right? Instead of forcing everybody into this narrow path. And that's where we get to effective behavior, right?
What's funny was, when early automation came in, and I think of one in particular, their job was, hey, we're going to make all your recruiters the same. We're going to mimic the best behaviors of all your recruiters, and we're going to automate that stuff. and it did not work.
It doesn't. It's not. Yeah, because exactly what we just talked about, right? The personal preference of people, the personal style of people, right? You need that human element, and that's where, as somebody who set up those automations, right, and sold those automations as well, right?
You are
100% right, but you're exactly right. That's where you get them to, right? And this is what you always talk to the recruiters about. Like, this is an enhancement to what you do. If you don't carry the ball the rest of the way, this all fails, right? The automation is only good enough to take you so far and to help with that, the constant touch points, and to make sure that effective behavior is happening, but you still need the human at the end to carry that forward, right? And maintain that relationship piece, to be their own style and own delivery method.
You're looking at the last one's like ways to implement tools to drive desired user behavior. We wanted to talk about one of the things that I keep talking to people about. If you're buying software in our space and you're buying it believing that it is going to solve your problems, save your money. That's like buying a gym membership and staying at home and being upset that you're not getting in shape. You gotta put the work in. You have to learn how to use the tools. You can go get a personal trainer or an expert like Adam or somebody that can help implement this stuff. But my gosh, if you're buying it thinking that this is going to solve our problem, and you're not willing to put in the work or resources, just just save the money until you're ready to invest in somebody instead that can come in, that is available to drive these things, because you have to put the work in to get the results. You just don't plug something in and have 200 automations run.
No.
Everybody's data is different. Everybody, the way they want to communicate is different. Everybody knows their audience different. Like, you have to put the work in. Even like us, hey, we want to get reviews. That's great. Like, but if you're like just getting reviews and you're missing out on the opportunity to celebrate, to promote, to turn negatives into positives, to do all these other things, you're just wasting your money, because you're not reaping the full benefits of going to the fitness center, getting with a trainer, learning how to use the commitment, and being disciplined of doing it every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my little rant to end, but I do want to know, as we wrap, give me some ways to implement tools that you found is easy to help you get the desired behavior that you want from your users.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to look at what's important to your business, right? To your particular staffing agency model, who are you servicing? What's important to your business? What are those key details in the jobs and the candidates that you're looking for? Hone in on those.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate the process. Just hone in on the key things, and then start to look at how you can improve the collection of those key pieces of data, right? And the like dissemination of those key pieces of data, whether that's to your clients, to your candidates, right? Make it simple. That's it. It's as simple as that. Is just matching those two key pieces up, and then delivery, right? How do you deliver? So, is it through a human doing it? Is it, some simple automations that, to your point, that you can implement very simply and take and have a major impact by just sending out, thank yous for applying to your jobs online, right? Simple things like that.
Or like, hey, I'm sorry the job is closed, but we'll keep you into
Yes.
consideration. People don't
Yes.
necessarily need a long explanation why. They just simply want the door closed. And we don't close the door because we hate giving bad news.
That's right.
Automate the bad news in a very friendly way that can still add value to them, that leaves the door open, that they're always welcome back in. And we want to continue working with you.
Yeah. And then, I think that at the root of this, right, too, is the simple things. Look at what's working. What are
Yeah.
your better recruiters doing that's working, right? And I'm not talking about, again, back to this, they're making phone calls and they're making 100 dials in a week, right? But, get into it with them. Are they calling at specific times of the day, right? What's really working? What's really moving the needle, right? Back to all of this. And then what tools can you now implement that help move those same needles in ways that streamline it for your teams, right? So I think this is back to that, really simply get back to the intersection of the user, right? And be curious about how they're interacting with the technology, right? What's working? Because this is our friend. We're all using it in our daily lives to make it better, right?
And I love that you ended on that, because we're hitting on time. But so many times you look at technology from a me-centric standpoint. How is it going to help me?
Yeah.
The bigger opportunity is how it's going to create a better experience for my candidates, my place talent, my clients. Because if we can provide that Amazon ease experience, they're going to come back for more. And so technology, as much as it should be used to and that data to help in efficiencies, learn that data to figure out how you can make experiences better for those people, because they're going to become more loyal fans. That's
Right.
just the way we want to work. Make it tough on me, I'm probably not going to come back, right? Ghost
No.
me, I'm probably not going to come back. So how can technology help improve those experiences, which elevates your brand and reputation?
No, and you just hit something on a really great point. Is it's really easy to lose people. They have a lot of options out there right now.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that coin is it's also really not that hard to keep them either. We all know the status quo is easy. So if it's
It's
not
so
broken,
low. It's so
I'm not
low,
looking to
Adam.
leave. Yeah, I'm
Right?
not looking to leave. Just, so it's not, it doesn't have to be as daunting as we're making it, right? Just
Yeah.
make the experience, try to make the experience better and be human about it, right? Focus on it. And I think it'll be a lot easier than you think.
Well, you were right. We went over, but I don't mind, because I love it. I hope everybody got something away from this. There's a ton more to unpack. It's tough. it's tough to talk about a subject where we're in its infancies and where it can go. But I know that there's folks like Adam, myself, and other people out there in the market that we're driving the modernization of this industry. We're changing what it means to be a recruiter, to be a staffing firm. It goes to experience, it goes to consultant. It is going away from the put butts in seats and just hammer and dial. You know, this is a career. And if you're a recruiter that's in an organization that feels like you're doing that, just hammering and dialing, and every day you feel like you're waking up and making the donuts, you might want to start looking for new opportunities, because there's a lot of great organizations out there
Yes.
that want to turn this into an extremely fruitful career. And there's not many careers out there that can help as many people in their daily lives as what recruiters do in this industry. And I think that's something that gets so far overlooked for so many people. But I also understand it, because there's a lot of them that are just creating poor experiences, and it's easy things that we can solve, and Adam can help.
Yes, we knew. That's what it is all about, working together, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Adam, if people want to learn more about Opus Match, if they want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So you can get a hold of me at adam@opusmatch.ai, and you should go to opusmatch.com.
Awesome. Well, hey, it's a pleasure. The wrap is this. If you're thinking about data as submittals, interviews, and hires, you are still in 1996. It is 2023, nearing 2024. Data is a lot more than just that, and what you can do with it is amazing. You just need the right tools, resources, and guidance from folks like Adam who can help you. Other than that, I really appreciate our conversations, and we probably could have made this a 3-hour episode.
Yeah, and correction there, opusmatch.ai.
AI.
My faux pas.
AI.
It's so antiquated.
All good.
There you go.
All right. Well, Adam, it's been a pleasure. LinkedIn community, thanks so much for tuning in, and wish you the best for the rest of the week.
Thanks so much, Adam. Always a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.